Well, I'm 2 years into dialysis. I have end-stage renal disease, and if you're not sure what that is, I will also provide more information on that in the description box below. Um, it started out with just me being a diabetic, and a horrible diabetic at that. When I found out I had diabetes, I was probably 18. In the worst possible way, my blood sugar was over 600 in the emergency room. The ER doctors and nurses were all saying that I probably shouldn't have been conscious when I was there. I traveled from New Jersey to DC with the blood sugar that high. And when I say that trip was the longest trip ever because I spent most of it in the bathroom. If you do not know, one of the signs of high blood sugar is frequent urination. When I say I will go to the bathroom go to the bathroom, get back to my seat, and maybe 2 minutes later have to go back. And that was a 4-hour train ride from Jersey to DC, and I want to say every 10 minutes I was going to the bathroom. So once I got to DC, my grandmother, she checked my blood sugar the next morning because you had to do it a fasting blood sugar, and a fasting blood sugar was over 600. And the meter itself didn't even give us a number; it just said high. So I went to the emergency room, and from there, I was diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic. And of course, at that point, I'm just thinking, well, okay, I just gotta watch what I eat. And I did for about a week. And then I went back to my horrible eating habits, sugar here and there, sugar everywhere, cakes, cookies, sandwiches, everything. And it just got worse progressively. I did think that at one point it was getting better because I was starting to lose weight. Now, let me tell you, at one point in my life, I was almost 300 pounds. So once I started to lose the weight, I thought I was losing weight in a healthy way. So I just didn't really pay any more attention to it. And a couple of more ER trips later, my blood sugar is still doing horrible, and they're starting to tell me, well, look, in order for you to get your blood sugar under control, you need to lose weight. And I was like, I've been hearing I need to lose weight all my life. I'm not about to just keep trying to lose weight and it's not happening. I wasn't active in any type of sports. I didn't like exercising. At the most, I may have walked here and there. Well, I didn't walk here and there. I didn't have a choice because I don't drive, and I still don't know how to drive. At 34 years old, I still don't know how to drive. I can't even wrap my head around driving. I can pass the written test with no problem. But anyway. And so, as years went on, I just continued to do everything that I shouldn't do. And then once I got older, once I became legal with the drinking age, of course I didn't start out right away just drinking heavily or partying like that. But as I got older and started to make more friends, side note, in high school, first couple years in college, I was a loner. I didn't hang out with anybody. I didn't want to. I didn't really try to make friends until probably like my second year in college. I made some friends, and then things just went haywire. Partying every weekend, drinking every weekend, just college kid stuff. Not saying that's what you're supposed to do in college because you're supposed to be studying and getting that degree. Needless to say, I didn't finish. But I did get to experience partying because, like I said, in high school I didn't really hang out with anybody or have any friends like that. It was more so I knew people, and that was it. Then I moved to DC. I was born in Washington DC, but you know, somewhere along the lines I ended up moving to New Jersey, and that's where I spent most of my childhood, in New Jersey. And I moved back to DC. At this point, I'm 26 years old, living in DC on my own, have my own apartment. And now I'm just like balls to the wall, having a good time. Drinking and going out, having little hangouts at my house all the time, and still being a horrible diabetic. I'm not on any medication at this point. I'm not taking any medication at this point. I know I'm supposed to be on medication, but I'm just not taking it. I didn't have any health insurance, so I just figured if it gets bad enough, I'll go to the ER and they'll give me a prescription and we'll just do it that way. I didn't have a primary care doctor either. And it was more so just, well, nothing's wrong with you at this point. Just keep moving. So, 4 or 5 years of doing that, I end up in the emergency room again. This time it's my blood pressure. Now, what happened was I was bitten by a spider and I didn't realize I was bit by a spider. I just brushed it off as a mosquito bite. And it ended up getting infected. And I went to the emergency room and my blood pressure was through the roof. And they just couldn't figure out why my blood pressure was so high. I had a fever, the whole nine. I ended up going into the ICU because my blood pressure was so high. And they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't get it to come down. And my blood sugar was also high. Then this is when I become classified as DKA. If you know the term, you understand. But DKA means diabetic ketoacidosis. I cannot explain to you what that is right away, but basically, it's a bad state to be in as a diabetic. Basically, your body is spilling ketones over into your urine. Basically, you have something known as glucoseuria, whatever, which loosely translates to sweet pea, or basically sugar in your urine. Now, this is almost as literal as it comes when it comes to that term. Sweet pea, your urine can technically be as sweet as sugar, which is not a good thing to be happening. That means your body has so much excess sugar in it. The only way it can get rid of it is through your urine, and it's so much that it causes your urine to be sweet. Now, I don't know this firsthand, why they call it that, but I'm just going to take the doctors at their word for it. So I was classified as DKA. Now, at this point, they started telling me, well, you can no longer take the glucose tabs. You're beyond pills at this point. You need insulin. And I'm still type 2. Most type 2 diabetics do not take insulin. They are medication through pills, and weight loss help control type 2 diabetes, because type 2 diabetes normally affects those who are overweight. So I'm like, well, now I'm taking insulin. I don't really need to watch my weight. I went a few years back and forth with insulin taking. Okay, I got this. I can take the insulin. And if you know me as a person, you know that I am definitely afraid of needles. And at that point, I was just like, if I have to take a shot, I got to do it. So I started to get better. I started working on it at that point. Now, at this point, I have a primary care doctor. I'm going to see a doctor regularly, and he's like, your A1C is a 14. Your A1C should be a 7 or below. It's a 14. That is way above the number that it needs to be. We need you to get it down. And I'm like, okay. At this point, I'm just like, well, I don't know how to get it down. I'm just doing what I need to do. Again, being a horrible diabetic, not paying attention to what I'm doing, not paying attention to what I'm eating or drinking, just willy-nilly with it. Like, I'm young, nothing bad's going to happen to me right now. I have that mindset at this point in my life. So we fast forward some years, I end up moving back to Jersey. And, I'm up there just ha ha ha, carefree. I'm with family. I'm having a good time. I'm reconnecting with old high school friends, old college buddies. Just back into the lifestyle I was living. Just back. I ended up getting a cut on my foot because this is the time of flip-flops. And everything was a flip-flop here, a sandal there. And I got a cut on my foot. And as you know, as a diabetic, your feet are your everything. Because as a diabetic, you start to lose feeling in your feet. And you don't really know if you have a cut or not, or if you got a sore, it won't heal properly because it's all about circulation at this point. Me, I know all this. I have tons of diabetics in my family on either side. Like, the number on either side is so high, I was predestined to be a diabetic, basically. It could have been prevented, but as I said earlier, I was just doing all of the wrong things. being your typical teenager, just ha ha ha, whatever, I'm young, I can do what I want to do, and nothing's going to affect me. Now, I've had family members on either side on dialysis. I've seen the effects of dialysis. I know what dialysis consists of. And I wasn't afraid of dialysis per se because I've seen it. But in my head, I'm like, dialysis doesn't affect anyone my age. I have to worry about that when I get older. Not the case, but not true at all. So, I end up with a sore on my foot, and again, my foot swelled up. I'm just thinking it'll go away, it'll go away. I'm icing it, I'm taking, little ibuprofen pills, I'm elevating it. And my grandmother's like, you need to go to the doctor. So I went to the emergency room, and they're like, well, you have an infection. It was to the point where it had started to heal, but the infection hadn't gone away. So the sore itself had healed, but it was still infected. So I ended up getting admitted to the hospital again. Classified again, DKA. When I hear the word DKA, I automatically know I'm being admitted. Here they come with the IV, with the fluid, and the insulin, and the shots in my stomach to keep my blood from clotting. And I'm just like, well, I know what this is about. Here come the conversations, you gotta do better. I'm hearing it from my dad, my mom, my grandmother. And it's just like, I really don't want to hear this. I know it already. I know what I gotta do. At this point, it did become a little bit scary because the wound care doctor was like, another day or two, the infection would have reached your bone, and that's something you really don't want because you would have been at home doing IV treatment. Because the antibiotic that they have to give you because the infection's in your bone isn't their typical antibiotic. And I was like, oh, damn. I was like, you know what? If my grandmother hadn't told me to go, it's possible I could have had a bone infection to the point where I may have lost my foot. And this is when I started to learn more about insurance companies. Because the insurance that I had at the time, my first 2 days in the hospital, they did not pay for it because under their classification, I wasn't in danger of losing my foot. So they felt there wasn't a need for me to be admitted. But by the third day, once I got all those other classifications in my chart, they were okay, now we'll pay for it. But that's another story why I got into medical billing and coding. I understand that. I know how to do it. I need to continue that really because, there's a lot of money in that, but something else. Let's move on. So I get released from the hospital. Now, at this point, I'm doing better. In the state that I was in, their outpatient program is a lot more better. They give you a lot more education, and they also put you in touch with the right agencies to make sure you have your medication, you have your testing supplies, your needles, your strips, your lancets, your glucose tabs if you need it. And they gave me enough to where I would be okay for at least 6 months till I could find a primary care in New Jersey. I found a primary care, but this primary care wasn't used to dealing with anyone my age at such an accelerated rate of the diabetes that I was at. Their normal patients are elderly patients. I hate saying geriatric, they make them seem so older, but elderly patients. So he was just more so, oh, you need to lose weight and you need to do this, you need to do that, but it was more, this is what you need to do, and he really wasn't so much treating me, but more coaching me on what I needed to do, and, giving me the medications that I needed. So, as in the process of dealing with that, at the time I was in school for medical billing and coding. So I finished school, and I wasn't working, my mother was just like, well, why don't you move to Mississippi with me? In my head, I'm not moving to South Mississippi. I'm not moving anywhere where at the time slavery was still legal. No one was practicing it, but it was still legal. I think maybe within the year that I moved here, they just got rid of it completely. No, it was no longer legal. Like, it was still legal because no one ever thought to look at the law and see. So I guess somebody noticed it, like, oh snap, they can still do that here? No, we got to get rid of that. So that's what happened. I ended up moving to Mississippi, got in with a really good doctor, and we started the process. My A1C is still 14 at this point. Remember back in the story and I told you my A1C was 14? To me, I'm surprised it hadn't been higher than what it was. So at this point, it's still 14. And my doctor looked at me with this look like, girl, you're killing yourself. You need to bring your A1C down. And we meet now. So he put me on a combination of pills and insulin and a strict diet that I didn't adhere to at first. But once he told me, and this doctor, some people that I've met around here, I'm not going to say his name, but I met would say that he had a horrible bedside manner. He was rude. He was mean. I didn't see him as being mean. I seen him as being stern. I didn't mean to say saint, but I love saying it. If you've seen Hot Tub Time Machine, you know the part where Craig Robinson is like, I synced it. I love it. That's my favorite part. So saint has been burned into my vocabulary. Moving right along. Don't try to come for me for that. But I seen, I saw him as more stern, as in, like, I'm not understanding why you don't understand what's happening to you, or you don't understand the severity of what it is that's happening to your body, and you need to get it together. It got to the point where he was like, if you're not going to follow my instructions, I'm not going to treat you. You're going to have to find a new doctor. And at that point, I think I realized, I was like, okay, it shouldn't have taken me that long, but it took me that long to realize that what I was doing was not proper. It's not what I should have been doing. Now, believe me, this conversation that we're having right now, I could not have it 2 years ago. When I first started dialysis, I couldn't admit to myself that what's happening to me is partly my fault. Now, I can. But as I'm going on with this doctor, he decides he wants to retire. So I end up getting another doctor, and he is a lot lighter in the words. His approach is a lot softer. But he has that same sternness to him. And as we're working together, my A1C now is at a 5.3. So I'm doing really good on that aspect of things. But what I did notice, now that I'm looking back on the situation, and what I feel as though could have been helpful to me, was I we never did a kidney function test every visit. It was something that was done maybe once or twice. And the second time he noticed that my kidney function had gone down. He said, well, maybe you're a little bit dehydrated. Next time you come back, we'll check it again. And the next time I came back, it was down again. He was like, your kidney function keeps dropping, and it shouldn't. And that's concerning me. I'm going to schedule to see a nephrologist. Those words scared me. Like I said, I've always been about, well, I didn't say this, I'm sorry. I've always been a science buff. Biology, anatomy are my favorite subjects. So I knew what a nephrologist was right away. That's a kidney doctor. When I heard kidney doctor, immediately I thought, oh my God, something's wrong with my kidneys. What's going on with my kidneys? Now, the year before, I had just had my gallbladder taken out. So I was like, oh man, is it because of that? I don't know why I thought it was because of that, but you know, that's just where my head was at the time. So I go to see the nephrologist, and in interim between seeing my primary care and the nephrologist, I have another kidney function test done, and it's down again. And that very last appointment with my primary care doctor, we did, I really don't want to admit this, but we had, yeah, I was really, really sick. I was throwing up a lot. When I say throwing up, every other day, every day throwing up. And I had had that problem since I had my gallbladder out. So in my head, I'm just thinking it's the gallbladder. And in between there, I was hospitalized because of my blood pressure again. But I was on so much medication that the doctors really couldn't pinpoint what was causing my issue. Could it have been the medication? Because we were trying to get my blood pressure under control. Once we got that under control, we could work more on the diabetes. But my blood pressure was so out of control. I was on, I want to say, about 6 or 7 different blood pressure medications, and a few of them had me throwing up constantly. Sometimes I would throw up and wouldn't even throw up anything. That's how much I was throwing up. And I had this awful metallic penny taste in my mouth. And every time I would mention it to the doctor would be like, "Well, it's, you're probably on so many medicines. That's what's causing it." It's like, "Oh, okay." So I got hospitalized because of my blood pressure. I was in there for about a week. The doctor that saw me, he treated me as I was in the hospital, took me off all those other medicines and just kept me on one. The throwing up stopped, so I was grateful for that. But that penny taste stayed. And he's like, "Oh, that'll go away after a while." So now we're here at the nephrologist. Okay, before then I went to the doctor and we did a urine test because I've been throwing up so much. My mother believed I was pregnant, and she refused to believe otherwise. I knew I wasn't pregnant. There was things going on with my body that was a clear sign that I wasn't pregnant. But she didn't want to hear that because according to her, that can still happen even if you are pregnant. I was like, wow, that's strange, but okay. So when I told the doctor, he's like, "Well, let's do a pregnancy test." And we did a pregnancy test. And when he came back, the look on his face made me question myself like, "Oh snap, am I pregnant?" But he said, "Excuse the language, if you have sensitive ears, move away. If you don't want to continue the story at this point, you can move away." Because, well, the language is not going to be graphic, but it's going to be descriptive. Let me say that. He did ask me, was I on my menstrual cycle? And I said, "Well, no, why?" He said, "Well, because there's blood present in your urine." I was like, "What?" So I was like, well, maybe I'm about to start my cycle. That could be it. But that didn't happen. But then also, like I said, me being an anatomy major and biology, I also knew that the presence of protein in your blood in your urine is a clear sign of kidney problems. So he thought I had a kidney stone. He said, "Well, maybe you have a kidney stone." So we did a test for that. Negative. So now I'm at the nephrologist's office because after that, he was like, "Well, you need to go see him immediately. You can't miss this appointment. You need to go." So I go see him, and he's looking at all my paperwork and he looked at my kidney function test, and he was like, "Yeah, you're at about 75%, and at your age, there really shouldn't be this big of a number difference." He was like, "Okay, well, come back and see me in 3 months." 3 months go by, and now we're at, I want to say August. We're in August. I come back and see him. "Well, your kidney function's down more." "What do you mean more?" He's like, "The last time I saw you were 75. Now you're about 69. He said, "I don't want you to be alarmed, but if your kidney function keeps going down, you're going to have to think about dialysis." I heard him say that, but then I didn't hear him say that. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So what? Dialysis? Like, no way. Come back and see me in 3 months. Now we're at November. Well, now, actually, I'm not going to say 3 months. I'm starting to see him on a monthly basis at this point after August. When he saw that my blood, my kidney function was down to 69%, excuse me, the appointments became more frequent. And then after about the third time of seeing him, well, I'm going to say from August, I went back in September, and it's continued to drop. October, again, it had dropped some more. Now we're in November. I'll never forget this day. Because when I tell you all of this happened in the span of a year. So it's November. I'm sitting in the office. I'm already nervous because every time I come in, he tells me that my kidney function has gone down even more. And in the last visit, we did have the dialysis conversation. So we're here in November. Between August and November, my kidney function had declined so much that in November, when I went back to the doctor's office, he said, you need to think about getting an access put in, because at this point you will be on dialysis. And I broke down in the office. He said, we're not saying right now, with during this year, but you're headed that way, and when you get there you need to be prepared, like right away. So it's best that you get your access put in now. You need to think about which form of dialysis you'd be interested in, whether it be PD, which is peritoneal, it's not blood, or hemodialysis. Or he's like, well, then there's a third option, you can do it at home. I was like, well, I really want to go home, I want to be at home. My dad does next stage, which is hemodialysis, but it's done at home and it's more frequent and you have more freedom to do what you want to do. You're not confined to a center. So I was looking at that. I was really interested in that one. And I was like, okay, well, in my head, I was like, well, it's not happening right now, but I need to be prepared for when it does. So I was thinking about the access. So, okay, well, he said, we're going to schedule you with the surgeon so you can go see the surgeon and get your access put in. I was like, okay, cool. And then the week after that, I had to come back to the doctor for another, because my visits are becoming more frequent now. So at this visit, it's not the doctor that I see, it's the nurse practitioner. And she comes